إن الله يدافع عن الذين آمنوا إن الله لا يحب كل خوان كفور أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم بغير حق إلا أن يقولوا ربنا الله ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات ومساجد يذكر فيها اسم الله كثيرا ولينصرن الله من ينصره إن الله لقوي عزيز الذين إن مكناهم في الأرض أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر ولله عاقبة الأمور. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Indeed, Allah defends those who believe. Surely, Allah does not like whoever is deceitful and ungrateful. Permission to fight back is hereby granted to those being fought, for they have been wronged, and Allah is truly most capable of helping them prevail. They are those who have been expelled from their homes for no reason other than proclaiming, "Our Lord is Allah." Had Allah not repelled the aggression of some people by means of others, destruction would have surely claimed monasteries, churches, synagogues, and mosques in which Allah's name is often mentioned. Allah will certainly help those who stand up for Him. Allah is truly all powerful, almighty. They are those who, if established in the land by us, would perform prayer, pay zakat, encourage what is good, and forbid what is evil. And with Allah rests the outcome of all affairs. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah, Sister Suraya. Once again, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this gathering of strength, solidarity, and sisterhood. We are honored to have each and every one of you here today as we come together to celebrate the resilience and empowerment embodied by the women of Palestine. Before we embark on this journey, let us take a moment to recognize the significance of our gathering. The Sistedhood of Palestine is more than just a program. It is a testament to the resilience, courage, and determination of Palestinian women. Sistedhood of Palestine aims at fostering solidarity and understanding the reality of Palestine. Our coming together affirms the notion that amazing achievements transpire when we join together. Through engaging discussions and inspiring speakers, we aim to amplify the voices of Palestinian women and create a platform for us to share their stories, their sorrows, and their triumphs. Today, we are privileged to welcome a distinguished panel of guests to our event. Dr. Selina, Vice President of Strive UK, will address the topic of Standing with Sisters of Palestine. Dr. Naveen Ahmed, President of MAB West Midlands, will share insights on endurance and faith, Islamic resilience in the heart of Palestine. Sister Shaima Dalali, activist and community organizer, will deliver a talk on sisterhood and solidarity, advocating for justice in Palestine. Our distinguished panel of guests was meant to include Dr. Shehnaz Alastar. Regrettably, she is unable to join us for this event. Dr. Shehnaz is a Palestinian hailing from the Gaza Strip. Currently, she is making significant contributions as a medical professional at Queen's Hospital, Burton. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us today due to personal reasons. Her family has crossed the border from Gaza to Egypt, and she had to fly to Egypt to support them. We sent our heartfelt prayers during this stressful time.
When it's time for crunch time. Dr. Selina, or Salinta to most of us, is a source of youthful energy and mature wisdom. She also regularly speaks at our panels that include academics, social scientists, activists, and community leaders. She takes immense pride in and is devoted to her lovely family that include her husband, a pediatrician by profession, and 3 children. I would like to invite Dr. Selina to deliver her session.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So Alhamdulillah, we are gathered here today to remind ourselves and remember our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Before I start, some of you might have traveled from far, and may Allah reward you for that. Ameen. Before I start, some of you may not be aware of Strive UK, so we'll do a short briefing. Strive UK is a British advocacy group working hard to combat misogyny and Islamophobia. We fight against injustice and we work towards creating a more just and compassionate society. Strive has organized numerous events for Palestine, India, Bosnia, Uyghur, and many more. We have raised funds to support the oppressed and our fellow Muslims, Alhamdulillah. And our volunteers have organized events for children, young adults, and parents to join and support other like minded organizations. We take part in comparing and demonstration against injustice. We help to produce documentaries about violence against Muslims and inactions of states in protecting them. We try to amplify the voice that are struggling to be heard, including the voice of women. And I'm actually personally very proud and shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are happy to present something very special, inshallah, after Ramadan. I'm sure you have heard of several festivals and children festival dedicated to music, romance, fantasy, comics, and history, etc. I wanted to invite you to Sibha, a literary festival for your minds dedicated to global activism on several issues, especially with Palestine, and dedicate and making the world a safer and a better and equal place. We are happy to inform you that some young award-winning Muslim authors are taking part, and we also have a Muslim manga anime artist from Japan attending. The kids are already excited. The registration is going on. Actually, the date is on the April 20th, and we will be, inshallah, showing the date, and you can ask some of our volunteers about the program and how to register. And it will be a fun-filled evening with the authors, create workshop, inshallah. And we all know what is happening in Palestine. Our heart bleeds, and any time when we talk about Palestine, it's very emotional to us. Today mark the 141 days since the recent escalation. We are agitated, frustrated. Our sleeps has been disturbed with no words to describe to the atrocities what is happening there. One thing for sure, we are becoming Palestinians day by day. And I would like to remind myself and all of you about some of the incredible sisters, our incredible Palestinian sisters who have significant presence protesting against the unjust occupation, defending their rights and identity. But we take back to go back in time, we can notice that women have been active in struggle from the beginning. If we go back to Musa alayhi salam, we know he is the liberator of Bani Israel. But there are many women that show what it means to be steadfast in our beliefs, to show integrity and bravery. The Quran goes on to speak about Musa alayhi salam's mother, as his mother struggled to protect him from the oppression and atrocities of the Pharaoh. She took action by undertaking huge sacrifice to let him go in we all know that story, in the river, putting him in the basket to float away in the river. And it was the Musa alayhi salam sister who guided his basket and made sure he reached the palace. It was wife of Pharaoh, Asiya Bibi, who nurtured him and parented him in front of the Pharaoh. So we can imagine like how much struggle and how much courage she took to protect the baby. This clearly shows how women like us were involved not only in the birth of great liberators, but also in their protection from worldly dangers, guidance, nurturing, and development. Much like Musa alayhi salam's mother, Palestinian mothers are doing what they can do to protect their children. Even if it must be so heartbreaking for them to do so, report shows like writing the child's name in their legs and arms, swapping children with families members to hope to survival and remaining. Actually what they do is like you have seen in the media, like they are writing in the hands and legs of the children, and also like swapping their children with family members in hopes of survival, and also remaining in their prayer clothes at all the time, knowing that death can take them at any moment. Going back to Musa alayhi salam as time, um, Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, also showed incredible strength resisting an oppressing force. I like the life story of Asiya, baby. Palestinian women deserve to be recognized for their strength and their resilience also. In the face of such an oppressive force, they are embodying many of the characteristics and attributes we admire in the woman I had just mentioned. And they have been showing up like this for long time. We know that. From Tarab Abdul Hadi, a Palestinian woman born in Jenin 1910, who founded the Palestinian Women's Congress, which resisted the British mandate occupation of Palestine, to Fatima Barnawi, who was among some of the first to mobilize against Israeli colonization and was the first female political prisoner. So, how much courage! These whenever we look at the Palestinian members, they are always inspirational. The courageous young Palestinian fight today, like Ahmed Tamim, you may all have heard of about her, who defied Israeli occupation with a slap that was heard around the world. Muna Al-Kurd is another brave Palestinian woman whose fearless journalism covering the continued Israeli colonization of her neighborhood, Sheikh al-Jarrah, led to the Palestinian art struggle going viral in 2021. She was honored as one of the Time magazine's most influential people. The stories of the Palestinian women contradict the West opinion. You might have seen a clip in the Instagram or also a TikTok. Like there is a interviewer in the media. She is talking like. Interviewing somebody from the Palestine, and she was telling like you may not used to women talking, how ignorant subhanallah she is, to look back to these ladies like the women and the sisters of the Palestine, how she inspired us, and they are inspiring, their inspiration is continuing. And also the stories of Palestinian women's resistance are both historical and consistent. In 1936, Palestinian women from Baka al-Harabia stormed a British mandate prison in response to the mass arrest of British Palestinian men by British soldiers. They succeeded in freeing all of the men and ended the enforced curfew on the village. How brave they are. They actually came with their children and they only have an arm, you can say like a stone in their hand, and then used that to free their men from the prison. Sahrat al-Aqwan, that was originally established as a women's social organization in Jaffa in 1933, was later transformed by Palestinian sisters and teachers Muhiba and Arabia Khurshid into an all-women's armed group to directly combat British occupation and the increase of Zionist settler gang violence in Palestine. Palestinian women introduced the first mass boycott against Israel decades before the BDS movement was founded in defense of Israel's restricting laws. They set up backyard garden, started farming, and taught women to grow their own food. Any issues that would arise during the Intifada, Palestinian women were quick to allocate solution to solve it. They were even teaching themselves medicine and set up medical teams to provide emergency care due to increased Israeli violence against protesters. When Israel closed Palestinian schools and universities, an attempt to prevent the mobilization of the students, the political mobilization, Palestinian women organized and started teaching the lessons in basement and abandoned buildings. They might have done in under the rubble, like what we see in the media nowadays, how difficult for them to, there is no school, no teaching, nothing there. When Israel cracked down with curfews and mass arrests in response to the prolonged civil strikes and boycott, however, Palestinian women persisted and found ways around the numerous barriers of Israel put in their way. Even when Israel outlawed the Palestinian flag, what they did, like they knitted their own flag and they used that flag for the demonstrations. When Israel forces placed leading famous Palestinian figures under their house arrest, what they did, they baked the bread and kept the pamphlets under the bread, and the ladies, like the other sisters, distributed into the Palestinian villages and town and the refugee camps. These mothers, they are with their babies' slings, without Israeli forces having no idea. Their strength and determination throughout the first Intifada captured global attention. So much so that United States was forced to respond to Israel's unwillingness to attend negotiations by withheld financial support to Israel. For the first time since Israel's settler colonial act, Palestinians brought the occupying forces to its knees, and it was Palestinian women who were leading the charge. Just like this Palestinian woman, then the Palestinian women now are showcasing incredible strength, resilience, and bravery, despite coming face to face once again with such an oppressive and destructive force. Sisters such as Baisan, you may be seeing her clips, Hind, Plastia, young journalist reporting and educating the world, revealing the truth while simultaneously trying to survive there. And Dr. Amira Al Asuli, her courage to treat the wounded patients. When we are talking about sisterhood, what it means, I want to remind myself and everyone what are we capable of, what we should draw strength from, and that we, as members of this worldwide sisterhood, that is the reason we are all here, should always rally our minds and our strength to try and contribute positively to our societies, just like the Palestinians. They are all, as I said in the beginning, they are always inspirational. That we should show up for them here like they are showing up for us there. We only few of their names. In my eyes, they all are heroes. Actually, one of the clip always I remember. Maybe she is my age, or maybe that is I got more attention. I don't know. She was standing there. Her shoulders are drooping. She's tired, drained out, and you can see all the emotions going on her face. And she very tiredly, she's throwing a stone towards the Israeli soldiers and calling them like, come in, like that. So, and also like indeed, what we see in the media, they inspire us, their courage, their tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have never seen a single image or video they are losing hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, we know Al-Quds is holy, but the people around Al-Quds, they are showing every day to us they are also holy. Also, I wanted to remind myself and you, my sisters, indifferent sometimes we might have thought it's happening for them. They handle this, they are far away. Not, we have to be aware and act upon it. I'm from India. In my childhood, I ever thought the Hindutva group, the fascist group will come to power. Now it is a short span of time. They are in power and at the causing difficulty the Muslims living there. We have to stand up and defend ourselves. Don't take it lightly. We need to educate and nurture our future generation, pass down to them our religion and culture. That's very, very important. Instill in them the importance of integrity and justice. We should remain steadfast in our knowledge and learning, support others to do so too, give aid as we are able to support causes that we are passionate about. During the aid, like Alhamdulillah, you all might have contributed. We can start from the family itself. Maybe we keep something like a box or something like, or take an oath or take a decision. Every day we'll do something for the Palestine cause. Maybe share some in the media, or ask your family members, like whoever coming the house, to put some money to the. We all earn maybe, so we can contribute that way. But something you show to, or to your family or the children, you are in the cause of the Palestine. So I said the 8, never stop speaking out against injustice, including the very injustice against which have all gathered here today. Speak out loudly and do not fear being heard. Most of all, maintain remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do dua and maintain strong in the tawakkul. We are all being tested here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the ability to stand in the right side of things. So that's very, very important. I mean, we have to answer our conscience, and may Allah ease their sufferings and show us the victory in our lifetime. This dua is like ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. I conclude my talk with Surah Al Imran, Ayah 200. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. Believers, be steadfast and firm in steadfastness, and stand firm in your faith, and hold Allah in fear, that you may attain true success. Jazakallah khairan. I hope you sisters, we all take something from this gathering, and inshallah, and we will be steadfast and support our sisters in Palestine. Not only the Palestinian sisters, whoever have going through oppression around the world. Ameen. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Next, we have Dr. Naveen Ahmad, who will be sharing her insights on endurance and faith, Islamic resilience in the heart of Palestine. With a master's degree in diabetes from Roehampton University in London and another master's degree in Islamic jurisprudence and its foundations from the European Institute of Human Sciences in Paris, Dr. Ahmad is a multifaceted leader. She currently serves as the president of the Muslim Association of Britain West Midlands branch, and has previously held positions such as member of the MAB Shura National Council. She is also actively involved in community initiatives, volunteering her time here at the Muslim Students' House Masjid and Community Centre in Birmingham, and having served as an executive board member of the Northern Ireland Muslim Family Association in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Dr. Naveen, the stage is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله. We really proud of this event, and we, on behalf of the Muslim Association of Britain and on behalf of Muslim Student House, we welcome all of you, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward all of you for the effort you are making to be in this event today. MashaAllah, I met some sisters coming from Luton, coming from London, some sisters coming from Scotland, and this show how much love and commitment to the cause of Palestine you have in your heart, and shows how much attachment to the cause of Palestine that you make this effort to come to this event. And I would like to convey a very special thanks for Strive UK and all the sisters in Strive UK for initiating and organizing this event. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make these minutes we are spending together here in our scale of rewards. Inshallah, we will find these minutes, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this will be witness in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we didn't stay silent. We tried as much as we can. We tried everything we can to do something to help our brothers and sisters. So inshallah, today we'll have some reflections about what's happening in Gaza. Definitely each one of us have a very, very heavy heart these days, while we are, as our sister mentioned, it's now more than 140 days, and every day we watch the killing, the loss of our brothers and sisters and children every day. And maybe at the beginning of these events, none of us would have expected that it will last that long. None of us would have expected that Palestinian brothers and sisters will be steadfast and will go through this and still be on their cause and in their land. No one had expected that the level of cruelty will reach this level, and the level of resilience will reach this level. And now when we are, subhanAllah, approaching Ramadan, we are only 2 weeks away from Ramadan, and none of us can enjoy the feeling of Ramadan and the happiness of approaching Ramadan while we know that our brothers and sisters have lost everything. They are in tents, and some of them cannot even afford a tent. There are many families are still in the streets after their houses have been demolished and after they have been displaced from North Gaza and then to the middle area of the Gaza, and then now they are all of them pushed to a very, very narrow area in Rafah. And all of them are, after they have been in their houses and in their jobs and have their dreams for their careers and for their children, most of them are now in tents with very little means of living. And nowadays we are going through what is very painful for us when we know that some children are dying from hunger. Can we imagine? I was just thinking, can we imagine how little amount of calories was needed to save these children? How many calories was needed to save these children? How painful was it for a child to go through hunger for days? They will not die from hunger unless they have been for days and days in pain and in suffering. Can we imagine how much food wasted? I will not say in the world, I will not say in our country, I will say in our houses, in our day-to-day life. Can we think how these calories would have saved a life of a small child? So we are witnessing something we have never been through before. These days have taught us so many lessons have been subhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us these lessons, gave us this test. And it is a test not only for them, it's a test for every one of us to judge ourselves and to test our morals and our humanity. After all of this, what makes things a little bit easier for ourselves to go through? Two things. One of them is to always remember this ayah. Remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Ibrahim, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ تَشْخَصُ فِيهِ الْأَبْصَارُ. Never think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unaware of what the wrongdoers are doing. So whenever we have this feeling, whenever we have this suffering in our heart, it's always comforting to remember that don't imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not witnessing this. Don't imagine that it's not happening according to a plan from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's painful. It's sometimes stopping us from even living our normal life. We cannot live our normal life. We cannot look at our children. We cannot feel even the happiness of Ramadan. How can we enjoy iftar in Ramadan and we know that our brothers and sisters are in the streets, have no food for iftar or for suhoor? But when we remember, when we remember that all of this is happening under the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the merciful, the Hakim, the wise, the all-knowing. So yes, it's hard, but it's for a plan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And this sacrifice will not go just like this. And these blood are not water. And this will be a price for something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is planning for. This will be a price for a victory. But we are, it's difficult for us to feel it and to see it. And the second thing that it makes it easy for us to remember that this is not the first time in history. Maybe we haven't witnessed this in our life, but it happened before. If you have read that at certain times when there have been crusade campaigns against Muslim countries, the Al-Quds, Jerusalem, has been invaded, and thousands of Muslims. Some historians say that every single person in the city in Al-Quds have been killed, and this was years and years ago. And the Masjid al-Aqsa that we are witnessing now, this masjid have been occupied by the Crusaders, and the adhan have not been raised from al-Masjid al-Aqsa for 88 years. These Crusaders have been occupying Jerusalem for 88 years with no adhan, with no one praying in this masjid. And someone who have witnessed this, and maybe this was his whole life, 88 years, would have never expected that this will change. So these disasters and these tests will not stay forever. But as the Prophet ﷺ say, وَلَكِنَّكُمْ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. You want a rapid victory. You want a quick victory. You want to see the victory. But everything goes according to plan from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these two things important for us to start with. Next one. This is what we are talking about today. Two things. The resilience in Gaza. How did they have this resilience? Where did they get this resilience from? How can we witness a mother carrying, I wouldn't say carrying her dead baby. She is carrying parts of her child. This is all what she can find, and trying to find a place to bury them. And at the end she says, Alhamdulillah. How can we find this sakina, this tranquility in these people? And to understand this, even wallahi, sometimes even non-Muslim are asking, where did they get this resilience from? And they have two ways of resilience, two sources for their resilience. One of them is their resilience to their religion, and one of them is their resilience and their attachment and their yaqeen. In their yaqeen means their belief in their rights to their land. They never give up this. They never give up these two. And it's very important to know that why we are different, why we look at them and say, how can they do this? Because we look to the world around us through a different glasses, a different scope. We see things, when I have my glasses and I see through this, I cannot see outside it. We look at this dunya through a different lens than the lens that they look at the dunya. The lens that they use to look at the dunya, they believe and they can see, they can visualize the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. Whatever is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better. So whatever they live in hut, they live in very nice houses, but and they have their careers, they have their money. They were not poor people. But whatever they have, they believe in their heart that all of this worth nothing when they compare it to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared to his believers and to those who can go through this test with patience. When they look at the dunya through this lens, they can go through this test. But the lens we are looking through the dunya is different. We think that everything we have now is just more attached to us and more visualized to us than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared to us. And to reach this level, they don't reach this level during the events. They don't reach this feeling and this yaqeen and this belief in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for them during the world. Prepared for this. They prepared themselves, they prepared their children. And if you look at this photo, these events, these photos was taken only 2 months before the war started. These photos was taken in August, just before the war. And it was for a huge event in Gaza. They call it Huffaz Gaza. Every 2 years or every few years, they have an event where those who have been memorizing the Quran gather in their mosques and start memorizing the Quran and reciting the Quran from morning until the end of the day, maybe until 6 p.m., 8 p.m., and then they recite the whole Quran. Children, women, old people, girls, everyone, they are involved. In this event, I was just reading about this event maybe few months before the war, and I was just surprised. How can a small girl, 6 or 7 or 8 years, stay in the masjid from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. and recite the whole Quran? 1,500 Gazans person have been finishing this Quran. So and it's very important to know that memorizing the Quran it doesn't mean that we just recite the Quran. It means we live the Quran. We live the meaning of the Quran. For them to be able to bring these ayat, bring the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into the it doesn't mean that they have just recited the Quran, just read the Quran. No, the Quran was living with them. They understand it, they live it. I remember when I read the story of when the Prophet ﷺ died. When the Prophet ﷺ died, many of the companions could not believe that the Prophet ﷺ would just leave them. They could not, although everyone would think every person will die, but they could not imagine that they will be separated from the beloved Prophet. They did not prepare themselves for this day. And even the very, we say the noble Sahaba, the noble companions, some of them did not believe it. And one of them was Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Khalifa, the strongest man we know. At that time, his mind could not digest the reality that the Prophet ﷺ died. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr, when he came, when he find everyone cannot believe that the Prophet died, Sayyidina Umar was just saying, whoever say Muhammad ﷺ died, I will kill him. No one say Muhammad died. He did not die. He went to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like Sayyidina Musa, and he will come back. And if I see any one of you say that he died, I will kill them. This is what Sayyidina Umar was saying. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr, when he came, he just make everyone calm. And then he recited one verse from the Quran. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. Muhammad is just a prophet. And there have been many prophets before him. If he dies, are you going to turn back from your religion? And Sayyidina Umar, when he listened to this ayah, he said, I know this ayah. I memorized this verse. I have read this verse several times. But it at this moment, he could not recall the ayah at this moment. Why Sayyidina Abu Bakr could call it? This is the strong belief. This is where the believers are connected to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when they need, it comes to them. It works in their life. And this is what we are saying, how they prepare themselves and prepare their children. We see, wallahi subhanallah, we see children teach of believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the meaning of aqeedah, the meaning of, yes, we are going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's okay, we are martyrs, don't worry. I remember I met, or I've read some sisters saying, let these orphans, children from Gaza, come to us in Egypt so we look after them. And one sister answered her, from Egypt as well, and said to her, what are you talking about? Do you want to take these children to look after them? They can look after us. They're here in every Muslim country to teach us the aqeedah they have. So this is religion, and this is where they get it from. And the second part is the resilience for their land. They believe that this is their land and they have right to their land and they will never give it up. This, to keep this lineage and to keep this narrative and to keep this belief in the hearts and in the minds and in the lives of generation after generation for 75 years, that's not something easy. That takes so much effort from this generation to keep this belief. They will so easily just forget about it. It has been for 75 years now. Forget about it. They didn't forget about it. And they never give up the dream that they will free their country. I remember when I came here in the early, it was 2000, and it was maybe, I didn't meet many Palestinian sisters before, and I had one of my friends, and she was Palestinian, and I had 3 children, and she had 3 children, and we were a very similar age. And then after 1 year, we were just getting like older, and I found her, mashallah, she was pregnant, and she had a baby, and I thought, oh, mashallah, she has some energy to look after 4 babies. And then after 1 or 2 years, she had another baby. And I felt, mashallah, I felt we are very similar in age, we are very similar in so many things, how she can look after 5 babies. And then she had another one after that. And at that stage, I just couldn't stop. And I just asked her, why you are doing this to yourself? You are getting old, it's not safe for you, it's not safe for the baby. How are you going to look after them? You know what she told me? Wallahi, she told me a word I will never forget. She told me, we Palestinians, when we have children, we have one for ourselves and one for our land. We get a child for ourselves and a child for our land. So this is their aqeedah, this is their belief, that their children are not to grow up and to get married and they enjoy the day they get married and they enjoy the life with them and enjoy the day when they graduate and the day and they look after them when they get, no, they don't have this future for the children. They don't see their children in this future. They see that at least half of my children will be sacrificed, will go for Palestine. And that's what made her, even if she is getting old and she has 6 children, she has the ability to have more children. Not to enjoy them, not because she likes children, because this is what they believe, that our children will not always stay with us, and I will not always have all of them with me. So this belief in their right to their land, and the right that the belief that one day this land will be free, this made this Palestinian issue live until this day. So these are 2 things related to people in Gaza. So now it's good to think of ourselves. What before we move to this is very important, because what's happening now is really test to the values of the human being, the values of this world. Because we have been living for many decades and we listen to this civilization, and especially the Western civilization, talking about human rights, women rights, children rights, freedom, everything. And when we came to this test, we find it just like suddenly these values are not for everyone. These freedom and these rights are not for everyone. These for specific people. And it doesn't take a lot from a normal person to see the children being buried, to see these young very babies being suffocated because there's no oxygen in this hospital, because oxygen has been stopped from arriving to the hospital, because fuel does not arrive to hospital. It doesn't take a lot from any normal human being to feel that this cannot go ahead. We cannot keep this happening. We cannot keep this going on. We have to stop this. It doesn't need a lot of humanity to respond to this. So what's happening? Why it is very difficult for these leaders, for the world leaders, to stand up and say enough. We cannot witness this anymore. Why? What's going on? Is it natural for someone to see all of this and just go ahead with that? That's fine. No, it's not natural. It's not natural. And that reminds us with something the Quran have spoken about and tried to change in the believers in the very early beginning revelation, in the early ayats, in the very early surahs that has been revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. You always know that the Arab before the Prophet ﷺ comes, they had a very bad habit, and this habit was that they bury their young babies or the young girls, and it was just something they do naturally, they do normally. And there is an ayah. Can you go for the next ayah? I'm not sure if this is the next slide or not. Can you move for the next one? Yes. So this ayah in Surah An-Nahl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us that these people of Mecca at that time, whenever someone is informed that he had a baby girl, his face just go black from the feeling of this is very humiliating. This is very shameful to have a girl. And then what next? The next ayah is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah is describing them for us. He is hiding from everyone around him. Yatawara. He's trying to hide because he got a girl. And then he thinks, should he keep this girl and carry on and take the shame of having a girl, or yadussuhu fi turab, just get rid of this? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ended the ayah with the words, sa'a ma yahkumun. It's evil what they decide, what they agree for. And the mufassirin, when they look to this ayah, they say, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take it in a plural? Sa'a ma yahkumun. All of them, they agreed for this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about one person. So why Allah give it like all of them? And the mufassirin says a very nice thing, that they all together agreed to normalize something that should not be normalized. They accepted it because it became very normal in a society. Not to take a small baby, your own child, your own just the one that you should love and should protect and should. This is not normal. This is against the normal fitrah. How they normalize it again in this society to the degree that no one would stand up and say, what you're doing? Why you're doing this with your babies? So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say it's evil what they all decide, what they all agree for. And it's very astonishing. I have read about this, what is the culture behind this idea of burying girls. And usually the scholars of sociology, they say behind every culture there is something very deep inside us, which they call it like assumption, a very deep assumption. No one knows, even himself, he doesn't know about it. And there is like a value, we pretend that this is behind the action I'm doing. So at that time, when you read their poems and their poetry, they say, why we bury our girls? Because we love them so much. If you read the poetry from this era, they say, we love them so much to the extent that we cannot bear the pain of maybe someone will attack her, she may be like kidnapped. So because we want to protect her from the pain she may go through, this is from how much we love our girls. When you dig deep inside them, you will understand very easily that definitely this is not love. Love will never do this, because they don't bury their boys, and their boys can go through hardship in life as well. What behind this is they have a fear for their own honor if someone attacked their girl, and because they protect their honor, they are willing to sacrifice and to get rid of their girls. But they never say that. What they say is, oh, we love them so much. And some of them would say like a very long poem, how much I love my girl, and that's why I'm going to get rid of her. This is exactly what we see in these days. People are trying to raise values for why they are living this genocide happening. Oh, because there are this what happened was something we cannot go through again. So we have to stop this brutality that happens in certain time. Because this country is a democratic country, and because Israel is a democratic country, it has the right to defend itself, and that's why we have to live and we have to accept these images. That's the values that they are telling us. Is that right? Whenever anyone asks them, how can you see, even try to vote for ceasefire, say, oh, because they have the right to defend themselves. You know what happened. And this is the value that they raise. But definitely, there are much deeper problems in their morals that allow this happen. But they don't say it, and even they don't feel it. It's not only they don't say it, they don't understand themselves. There are so much deeper things. Maybe they have white supremacy. They feel, yes, non-white people who are not from the same civilization or same culture, don't have the same rights as their children, and don't have the same rights of them. Maybe they have a deep feeling of colonization and their right to use everyone's land and to have interest from everyone's land, and they have it deep in themselves to the extent that their normal human being fitrah have been distorted, exactly like those who used to kill their own children. And because this is a test for the humanity, we now need to ask ourselves, what's our role and how to protect ourselves, because we are part of these societies and we can easily slip into this road. So for ourselves, how to keep our own resilience, the first thing is to make sure that we don't ever get used for what's happening. ever don't allow, because it's very easy for us to just get used. If you remember the first time there have been an airstrike on a hospital in Gaza at the early days, everyone was so angry, and we find protests in the same night and in the next day, to the extent that Israel itself came on the second day claiming that it was not them who bombed this hospital, because they cannot take this responsibility, because it was so shocking for everyone. Now, after 140 days, every single hospital in Gaza have been attacked. Every single, and it's normal. It's no one even is protesting again. We just listening to the news that yes, this hospital, the doctor that Sister Selina was talking about in Mustashfa Nasser Hospital, she was sieged in Mustashfa Nasser. Did you hear about Nasser Hospital? Did you hear when this hospital have been attacked? Did you hear when this hospital? Did you know what happened to the hospital? No one anymore, because it just things have been. So one of the tests for us is never allow yourself to get used for what's happening for our brothers and sisters. Second thing is, don't forget and don't give up. Don't give up doing whatever you can. Raise your voice and do everything you can, because the conscience of humanity is died, and this is our role to speak up. Don't wait for anyone to do the job for us, and don't underestimate the effect of everything you do. Subhanallah, you remember these photos we have seen? I think everyone knows this. Subhanallah, Ghazan man, he's called Khalid, who has his granddaughter Reem. If you ask anyone what is Ruh al-Ruh, everyone knows this person, and everyone have seen this photo of this old man wearing his turban and carrying his granddaughter. The effect of this image in the conscience of the Muslims and non-Muslim is destroying a propaganda taking place for years and years and years. They have been for years trying to image a Muslim person with a turban and with a beard. This is someone who you cannot trust. This is someone who is violent. And when they see the amount of softness of his heart, the amount of khair inside this person, they said, wait, this is not what we expect from someone with beard, and we expect something different, because the media telling us something different. So only one action from a single person, one photo, has just shaken narrative that have been propagated in this propaganda for years and years. So never underestimate anything you can do. Anything you can do, it had a huge impact. Just don't stop. So this is the second thing. And the third and the most important one is your dua. Don't underestimate the effect of your dua for your brothers and sisters. Don't ever think that it's what we can see this disasters happening. This is massacre happening. What my dua will change in this? Don't ever underestimate, subhanallah. This is the connection between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the greatest. And we don't know, maybe one of us has sincerity in her heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will listen to her. Wallahi, wallahi, wallahi. When you look at these photos, believe that your dua may have saved a child's life. By your dua, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have saved a person, have saved a life. Make dua for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them. Make dua for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them rizq. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our nation to help them. It's the feeling that we cannot help them that kills us. The feeling that we are witnessing this and we cannot give our hands to them. to finish, inshallah, so we give you some time to prepare for the prayer, to summarize and to finish what is our role and how we practice our own resilience. We mentioned, don't get used for these scenes. Don't ever give up and underestimate anything you do. Don't ever underestimate the power and the effect of your dua. We are going for Ramadan, inshallah, and make sure that in Ramadan, your brothers and sisters have a huge part in your dua. And the last thing is your attachment and your resilience to our religion. Our attachment and our resilience to our religion. Don't ever think that it's easy for us. We know that we go through sometimes difficult times because we are doing things that not everyone used for. And sometimes it's hard for us. And sometimes it's hard for us to raise our children and to help our children to steadfast and to hold for their values and for their religion. This is your role. And always remember that maybe at some point in history, one of our ancestors hold on their religion against all the hardship they faced. This is what made Islam come to us. This is what made the lineage of Islam continue. This is what made us Muslim. Maybe the hardship of one sister to hold on her hijab and to face difficulties to keep her hijab, this to have our hijab. So it's your role to teach your children and hold up on this in your religion, whatever the difficulty is, because we are going through a difficult time and our children are going through a difficult time and our children are facing huge challenges. And if we don't help them to steadfast and go through these tests, this is our role to, it's like, when it is a race, we need to hand this flag to the next generation. So we do our role. So Jazakumullah khairan for coming, and Jazakumullah khairan for listening. And we will finish by dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will alleviate the pain of our brothers and sisters and give them victory and save their blood and help them to go through their tests and to their difficult time and accept their martyrs, inshallah, in heaven. And Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. First, I'd like to thank Strive UK and Mab, of course, and all the sisters that are involved in organising this event and for inviting me here today. A lot of you don't know, but I actually grew up in Birmingham, so I'm always happy to be back. And this place has a really special place in my heart, so thank you so much. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept it from you all, particularly in this time where there's so many challenges and so many difficulties. And may this be a means for all of you, inshallah, to enter Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen. So the theme of sisterhood, which brings us here today, to share the tales and of resilience, strength, adversity holds immense significance in these turbulent times. We find ourselves amidst a dark period where societal morals and values seem to be forsaken. We witness atrocities unfolding before our very eyes, with the world turning a blind eye to acts of genocide. We see world leaders not only fail to act, but also contribute to the perpetration of violence by offering support to entities like Israel and fueling the horrors unfolding in Gaza today. It's a time that diminishes the importance of community and collective action because it recognizes the transformative power it holds. And this is why it's really important for us to come together and to hold onto that community and that sisterhood that we have. It's moments like these that we are reminded of the profound lessons imparted by the resilient people of Palestine and Gaza in particular. They urge us to reconnect with our Islamic roots, to reawaken our consciousness of Islamic principles. And they demonstrate the vital importance of solidarity, urging us to stand united, to look out for one another, and to extend care and support, and to be willing, most importantly, to make sacrifices for the greater good. Sisters, it's been nearly 5 months since the genocide began in Gaza. Muslims around the world have tuned into the most significant global event in decades, and perhaps in our lifetimes. Never before in history has a genocide been broadcast for the world to watch in horror, in real time. And let's be honest, we've all been on a roller coaster of emotions. We're witnessing both the painful destruction of Gaza and the beautiful resilience of its people. Every week, there has been both full heartache and pain and anger and activity. And I want us to think of this activity. Activity in the form of protests, vigils, events, fundraisers, and more. And that's because our hearts and minds are still with the people of Gaza and Palestine. I wanted to start off with some reflections from Surah Al-Buruj, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He actually addresses a genocide that happened. Surah Al-Buruj talks about the people of the pit, or Ashab al-Ukhdud, when a community of believers who lived before Islam, they were said to be Unitarian Christians. They were faced by ruthless and tyrannical enemies who sought to force them away from their faith. The believers refused, and therefore they were burnt to death in front of large crowds that had gathered to witness this act of extermination. Surah Al-Buruj starts off in the second verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ, and the promised day of judgment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He takes an oath by the day of judgment. This is the day that all oppressors, tyrants, and murderers are brought to justice. This is the day where the weak, where the oppressed and the innocent have their retribution and their justice served not by a temporary king or a temporary authority or the ICJ or the ICC, but by the Lord of the worlds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the master of all that exists. This day of judgment is a warning to the oppressors and a source of hope for the oppressed. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to say, وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ, and the witness and what is witnessed. Now, I want us to think about this, and subhanAllah, it's really beautiful, because oppressors, just like we see today in Gaza, they usually try to attempt to conceal their crimes from the eyes of humanity, in fear of being exposed and brought to justice. We see this right now happening in Gaza, where electricity has been cut off, where reporters and journalists have been killed. And despite such efforts, despite this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He bears witness to every single act of injustice that has occurred on this planet. No injustice, no act of injustice can be hidden from Him. You and I are witnesses. We witness every single day the atrocities that are being committed in Gaza. We see it every day on social media. This is our form of witness. The Ummah as a whole is a witness, and we will be asked about this on the Day of Judgment. Our bodies are witnesses. The angels are witnesses. Each and every single one of us, we are assigned we are assigned angels that record our deeds. They will be witnesses. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the witness. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to talk about Ashab al-Ukhdud, where He says, قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ, cursed were the makers of the pit of fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He curses a group of people referred to as the companions of the trench. These are the people who committed a genocide against a group of believers. There is a hadith which details this story in summary. It's of a young boy who was guided by another believer and who therefore defied the ruler and his magician who taught him the magic. And this young boy started to preach justice. Though the king, he killed this monk or this elder who guided the little boy to truth, the king wasn't able to kill the little boy. And he tried so many times to kill this little boy, but every single time he would fail. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he also gave this boy a lot of miracles to prove his truthfulness. One miracle was that he couldn't be killed by anyone unless it was a public execution where the words "in the name of the Lord" of the boy were to be recited. So the king, he gathered the people together to show this boy's end. And the king said, "In the name of the Lord" of the boy, and then shot an arrow at the boy, and therefore killing him. The people around were amazed by this and by the sacrifice of this little boy and what they had witnessed. And the king, who claimed to be a god, called on the Lord of the boy to kill him, acknowledging that there is a greater authority than him. And therefore the people around started to realize that actually this king was a fake god, and this boy, he sacrificed himself to invite people to worship the one and true Lord. And in doing so, the people started to become believers and went against the king, in an act unexpected. So what happened was, after the king became very angry, how dare these people defy me and believe in God, and how dare they disbelieve in me? The king became angry, and therefore he decided to commit a massacre. And what he did, he ordered all his men to dig a pit or a ditch on the ground, and he threw all the people into the ditch that believed in Allah, all of them believing men and women and children, and he burnt them alive. And I want us to think about this, because for me this is very similar to what's happening in Gaza today. People are being killed, murdered, women, men, children, in an act of genocide, mass killing, and people are being, for no reason, apart from the fact that they are Palestinian and they are from Gaza. These criminals placed the believers in a ditch filled with fire, and it's fire that is possessive of fuel. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, "An-nari dhat al-waqud," he's talking about this fire. The word waqud means to kindle. So the fire was kindled with fuel to keep the flames alight. And this might be very difficult to sort of picture, but try to picture it. This fire was so huge, it was very difficult to extinguish it. It was just kept alight. The same people who are destroying these believers in a ditch of fire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy in the fire of hell. They will become the fuel for that fire, and thus their crime of setting people alight to fuel will be their ultimate fate in the next life. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he goes on to say, إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٌ, when they sat by it, meaning this fire. It's narrated that the last of those to enter the fire was a mother with her baby. When she was reluctant to enter the fire with her baby, the baby was given the ability to speak and told her that she was upon the truth, and so she jumped in. It typically takes two types of soldiers to carry out brutal crimes like these. The first type is a reluctant soldier. He would rather not, but he has to follow orders out of fear. The second soldier enjoys perpetrating this act. In this verse, we learn that the latter are the worst and cruelest kinds of people. The word julus in Arabic means to sit for a short while, whereas qu'ud, which is what is mentioned in this ayah, means to sit for a long period of time. At the very brink of the ditch, they would find themselves a seat and watch these people being forced into the fire and set alight. Now, I want to take you back to what's happening today. and is directly linked to what's happening in Palestine and in Gaza. Just like the king, the Zionist regime established itself on the basis of falsehood. And just like the king, the regime could only respond to any threat of its false ideology with massacres and genocide. Yet, when the king did kill the boy, he did not kill his cause. On the contrary, the truthfulness of the boy's message and the falsehood of the king's ideology became manifested to the masses. Today, the genocide conducted by the Zionist state against the Palestinians have exposed hypocrisy of the regime and its supporters. Despite all the propaganda, the ugly face of settler colonialism and violent truth of Zionism has been unveiled to the world. At the same time, the faith and resilience of the Palestinians in the face of extreme oppression has inspired millions of people globally. And subhanAllah, you can see this, the amount of people that have actually entered Islam after seeing what happened in Gaza, and because of the patience and resilience that the people of Gaza have shown. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to say, وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ شُهُودٌ, and they witness what they were doing against the believers. The word amal is to perform an action with intention, like reading a book. Whereas fa'al, so which is what is mentioned in this ayah, وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ, the word fa'al is to perform an action without thinking, such as blinking your eyes. You just do it naturally. By using the word يفعلون, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He informs us that these people did not even think twice about what they were doing and the evil that they were committing on the believers. The oppressors would be witnesses against their own actions, and this is something that we also need to bear in mind. Now, the IDF has several telegram groups. They publicize, they take pictures, they take videos, and they mock the killing and humiliation of Palestinians, as though these atrocities are a form of entertainment. Nor is this the first time that Israelis have indulged in such casual dehumanization of Palestinians. For an example, in 2014, when Israel was bombing Gaza, some Israeli citizens literally brought their couches and their tables and the chairs on a hillside on the border with Gaza, and they were cheering the destruction of Gaza from afar. As the Israelis watched their state slaughter the defenseless and innocent people of Gaza, we watched what could only be described as a modern incarnation of the people of the trench. Exactly what the people of the trench did. They watched and they were looking at all these innocent people being burnt to death. This is exactly what the Israelis have been doing, and they were cheering it on. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to say, وَمَا نَقَمُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. And they resented them not except because they believed in Allah, the exalted in might, the praiseworthy. الَّذِي لَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. To whom belongs a domination, kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and Allah is witness over everything. Oppressors always justify their oppression by dehumanizing people, and they do this whilst they claim to be great. Every corrupt empire, every corrupt kingdom, every corrupt government has stupidly deluded themselves into believing that their rule is uniquely powerful, great and civilized. We are the uncivilized people. Every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He humiliates them and relegates them to the dustbin of history. The reality is that all that is in the heavens and the earth belongs to Allah only. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق. Indeed, those who have tortured the believing men and believing women and have not repented will have the punishment of hell, and they will have the punishment of the burning fire. It's important to understand that the suffering endured by believers in this life is not a sign of failure. The righteous will attain paradise in the next life. This is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their status will be elevated in accordance with whatever they suffered with this life. No matter the pain we feel at their unjust murder, the martyrs of Gaza's genocide and the martyrs throughout the ages are in a far better place in the next life. This ayah gives me a sense of relief. Allah is so merciful. He is so merciful, even through His punishment. When you see people go through oppression, you feel sorry for them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them the greatest gift of all by removing doubt and calling them mu'minun. Now we know there are different levels of Muslims. There is a Muslim, there is a mu'min. There are mu'minun, they are true believers. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He specifically mentioned the believing women as well. And women are mentioned separately to the men here, as when a group is oppressed, the easiest of the oppressed are women. And so this has been highlighted to inform us that even they come under the scrutiny of oppression and remain firm. Sisters, I'm sure you can all agree with me that the people of Gaza have become a living miracle. Their will to survive, and not only survive, but to persist and resist, has sent shockwaves around the world. It's awakened not only the Muslim masses, but given a hope to humanity itself. Hope for a new world. It has become evident, has come not from, and this has become evident, not from the shining capitals, not from London or Washington, or not from the technological feats or the trillion-dollar schemes, but from the rubble of Gaza. The hope has come from the rubble of Gaza. And how could this be? And I think it's really important for us to take some time and reflect on this. Seeing the determination and the strength of the people of Gaza, the ummah across the world is awakening. But not just Muslims or Arabs. Humanity at large has not sung songs of love and joined hands like it has for Palestine, despite the greatest machinery of deception and propaganda that history has ever seen. The entire formerly colonized world and the young generations and the dispossessed masses of even the colonizers have found their faith in humanity. And that is why, subhanAllah, when you go to these protests, majority of them aren't Muslims. Majority of the people attending these protests are your normal white British person. And subhanAllah, that's saying something. So I don't want us to forget this moment. Let's record this glimpse of this glimpse of hope, and it's something that we should hold on to and never forget. Now I know the theme is sisterhood, and I wanted to talk about this a bit as well. And this concept of sisterhood that we have in Islam goes far beyond familial bonds. It encompasses a profound sense of solidarity and mutual support amongst all believers. And the Quran reminds us of our duty to stand against injustice, irrespective of race, of religion, or nationality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He declares in Surah An-Nisa in ayah 135, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين. O you who have believed, be persistent, standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or parents and relatives. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to say in the same ayah, whether one is rich or poor, Allah is more worthy of both. God can take care of both. Refrain from following your own desires so that you can act justly. If you distort or neglect justice, God is fully aware of what you do. And therefore, sisters, advocating for Palestine or advocating for justice in Palestine is not merely a political stance. It's a moral obligation upon each and every single one of us, and it's rooted in our faith. The Palestinian people have endured decades of occupation, of oppression and displacement. Yet their resilience and steadfastness serve as a beacon of hope for oppressed communities worldwide. And the concept of justice is rooted in Allah's divine nature. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again in Surah An-Nisa in ayah 40, He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَظْلِمُ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. Verily Allah does not do an atom, even an atom, ways of injustice. Now think about that. Nothing will go unnoticed. And as sisters bound by the teachings of Islam, it's therefore a duty upon us to amplify the voices of Palestinian people and to advocate for their right to self-determination and to condemn the systemic injustice perpetrated against them. We can't turn a blind eye to the suffering of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Their struggle is our struggle, and their pain is our pain. And subhanAllah, I think we all know the ayah that if you see something wrong, change it by your hand, if not, by your tongue, and if not, then with your heart, and that's the lowest form of iman. And we also all know the hadith of that we are the Muslim ummah is like one body, and if a part of that body aches, then the entire body aches. But I feel like the past few months, I've really, really, truly understood those hadith. I've never felt it the way I felt it since October. And it really gave a new meaning to it, because I've never seen the unity that I have seen ever since October, subhanAllah. I know that sometimes it might be easier to just turn a blind eye. I know that sometimes it can be, the pain is too much and it can be overwhelming. But remember that the Palestinian people have shown remarkable resilience in the face of unimaginable hardships. And it must inspire each and every single one of us to persevere, to continue our advocacy with renewed vigor and determination. And I also want us to reflect a bit on the gendered nature of this war as well. As women in this room, I hope you'd agree with me that when I say that there is an extra layer of harshness and difficulty and cruelty that Palestinian women in particular go through. Now, just a few statistics, and they're not just statistics. This is actually real life, and this is happening. But just to put things into perspective, 2 mothers are killed every hour in Gaza, and approximately over 3,000 women have become widowed, and approximately 1 million women and girls have been displaced. There are over 50,000 pregnant women in Gaza, and 40% of those pregnancies have been classed as high-risk pregnancies. And 180 women are given birth on a daily basis without the support that they need. And this is it's a bit difficult to really imagine, because we have been privileged, alhamdulillah, with an NHS, with the support that we need, with the community that we need. We don't have bombs flying over our head. And sometimes it's very difficult, and we take advantage of these things, but these are things that our sisters are going through every single day in Gaza. Everyday women essentials. They don't have access to sanitary pads, and women are having to cut strips from their tents so they could use as pads. And I remember when I first saw this, I was like, it just never really crossed my mind, because I was thinking to myself, what do you mean you don't have pads? Like, you need, it's something that every woman has and deserves to have, and it's something that we use every single day that you don't really think about. But this is a reality of our sisters in Gaza. I've seen mothers tweeting that they have now started to give their daughters menstruation delaying pills because of the cramps and the pain, and because they don't have access to these essentials that we do. And again, these aren't statistics, or these aren't just stories. This is a reality of our sisters in Gaza today. We're so privileged. We are so privileged. And the idea that someone can't have access to something so essential just went above my head. But I want us to think about this when we are campaigning and advocating for Palestine. And sisters, we must resist the temptation to grow weary, to become desensitized to the suffering of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. I know it's been 5 months, and sometimes it can feel, okay, it's a bit long now, but we can't become desensitized. We can't get used to the images that we are seeing every day. It can't just be another story or another image. We need to feel the same anger and disgust that we felt from day one. Now, I currently work for a Palestinian NGO. And when I tell you the first few weeks and months in particular have been extremely, extremely difficult. My job is to literally watch what's happening every single day and to lobby politicians on behalf of Palestine. The images I was seeing coming out of Gaza, and on top of that, the way our politicians simply didn't care, made me feel depressed. It was very difficult. And I went through a period of breakdowns. I struggled to eat, I struggled to sleep, I struggled to do anything, because how on earth can we allow this to happen? And how on earth can our politicians not care about this? For a period, I felt like I was becoming paralyzed. And we are human beings. We're not immune to such feelings of this helplessness and vulnerability. But within the darkness, I realized that I had a responsibility and I had a greater purpose. And this made me overcome those struggles. And I only say this because I know I've had these conversations with others where people just feel helpless and they don't know what to do. And that sense of helplessness and that sense of, well, what can I do, is from Shaitan. So this is just to overcome this. I reminded myself that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He placed me in this role at this time for a particular reason. And therefore it was my duty, it was my literal Islamic duty to raise awareness and to advocate tirelessly and to confront the injustices perpetrated. It was my duty. And if politicians didn't care, that's my jihad. So I had to shift my perspective and mindset swiftly. So if any of you are feeling like this, try and shift your perspective and try and shift your mindset. And recognize that this struggle is not just mine or yours alone. It's a collective effort. And it's a testament to our shared humanity and commitment to justice. And despite the challenges that some of us might go through, we need to draw strength from the resilience that our Palestinian brothers and sisters are showing every single day, who continue to resist and persist in the face of unimaginable adversity. Despite everything we've seen in Gaza, people laugh, people sing, people are getting married, we are seeing pictures, and this in itself is a form of resistance. They are laughing despite the bombing. Kids are playing, when it's raining, they're out in the streets and playing despite the killing. They're getting married despite everything. And this in itself should give us that power and that strength that we need. I have a lot of Palestinian friends, and I actually remember in October, one of my closest friends was getting married. And just, subhanAllah, it was just a week after the 7th of October. And she was like, should I cancel it? There's a war happening. I don't know if I should cancel it. I don't want to be insensitive. And our Palestinian friend, she said, her name is Ruqayya. She said, Ruqayya, go ahead. Because as Palestinians, she's from Gaza, and she has family who died as well, who are martyred. She said, we love life. As Palestinians, we love life. And therefore, don't stop. And I say these words because Palestinians, they want to live. They want to live like we live. And therefore, we need to work so they can live. It's important as well that we make a distinction between being sad and feeling emotional from the images that we're seeing and falling into despair. There's a difference. We need to feel sad. We need to feel angry. We need to cry. And we need to reflect. And it's only human of us to do so. But falling into despair is to give up. And as Muslims, we can't give up. That's something that we can't do. Yet there are moments of weaknesses, moments where the weight of the world feels too heavy to bear. And we know that oppressors, they want to crush our spirits and they want to crush our souls. That's the reason why they always choose to storm Masjid al-Aqsa in the last 10 days of Ramadan. There is a reason for that. That's the reason, and it's always the last 10 days of Ramadan, some of the holiest nights of the year and one of the holiest places or sites in Islam. And I mention this now because Ramadan is around the corner and we're all expecting another wave of attacks and storming Masjid al-Aqsa. So that is something for us to be aware of. And there is also a reason why on the day of Eid, when children are supposed to wake up to celebrate with their parents, the people of Gaza, sometimes they wake up, sometimes they don't wake up. There's something very cruel about that. And the reason they do that, the Israelis do that, is because they want to crush our spirit. But in those moments, I want us to find peace and tranquility in knowing that you are part of a global community of advocates. You're part of this ummah. This is where the importance of community and working in a jama'ah becomes paramount. One of the most powerful tools of our disposal at the moment in advocating for Gaza and Palestine is the power of community. In Islam, we're taught that we are stronger together. The concept of one ummah reminds us that we are part of a larger community, bound by our shared faith and values. Working in a jama'ah or community, it allows us to pool our talents, our resources, and expertise to tackle different issues and problems that we face from multiple angles, whether it's organizing protests and demonstrations or lobbying policymakers or raising funds for humanitarian aid or raising awareness through social media campaigns. There is a role for each and every single one of us, and we play a part in that collective effort to advocate for Palestine. But advocating for Palestine is not just the work that we do externally. It's also about nourishing our souls and sustaining our spirits. And I'm going to conclude with this, inshallah, but this is very important. This is where the importance of prayer, particularly the night prayers of Tahajjud and Qiyam, comes into play. One advice I got from my mentor when I started university activism and became heavily involved in particularly Palestine activism was to never abandon my Qiyam. That was something I encouraged people in my team and everyone around me to maintain, because I promise you that will give you the strength that you need to face everything that you're going to face. The spiritual strength that Qiyam and Tahajjud, particularly Qiyam, it gives you, is something that you need to advocate for Palestine, and without it, you will struggle. We will all struggle. So I want to end on this note, inshallah. And it's a reminder to myself before anyone, of course, to please do your best to maintain your Qiyam. I promise you it will fuel you and give you the strength and clarity you need to continue in your advocacy with steadfastness and determination. Barakallahu fikum. Thank you.
Jazakumullah, Sister Shaima. Such a beautifully articulated yet profoundly heart-wrenching speech. How aptly you compared Surah Al-Buruj to the genocide unfolding in front of our eyes. Situations like these makes us feel so helpless, but let's never forget. La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Never lose hope in Allah's mercy. We now have a few minutes for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions for our speakers, please come forward and utilize this session, please.
Assalamu alaikum. It's more than a question, it's a concern actually. We all coming from part of India. So we have the same condition in India. We also facing genocide. So you probably heard about it, you may be aware about it. So the same incident that happened in India a few years ago when Modi was ruling Gujarat. That time the Muslims were actually pulled down and put it inside a well and poured petrol and tires and burned them and killed. So this is an ongoing thing. So the resilience, when I talk about it, is very less in some part of India. So Alhamdulillah, in Palestine it is, we see that. So we should be educating, I think, we should be educating all of our sisters, because the resilience starts there. We seen last, maybe few months ago, the ladies were, the men, a mob of men attacked the house of a community, and they brought the ladies outside and tear their clothes off and raped her, walked her in front of everyone nakedly and raped her in front of everyone. So this is an ongoing issue. So isn't it always better to having this kind of sessions in based on masajid or community centers to pass that message to everyone to involve that resilience, because we are not immune in this country also. This kind of things can happen anytime. So that's one of the concern. I don't know whether it's a question or not.
That's happening on our Muslim brothers and sisters, whether it's in India, in Kashmir, in the Uyghur Muslims, in Sudan, in Yemen. There are so many atrocities, and we all need to be aware of these things. We need to raise awareness, and we need to have events like this to continue raising awareness about the different causes, because we are one ummah, and whatever is happening in Sudan, it affects me. What's happening in India, it affects me. I care about it. What's happening to the Uyghur Muslims, I care about, because we're all Muslims, and that's how a Muslim should be. So yes.
يعني ما شاء الله, I really feel for what you have said, sister, and it's very important to understand that the Gaza events and the war in Gaza has opened not only our eyes, but other people's eye, everyone around us eye, that we can see that when we have these atrocities in places, they all come together, they all support each other, and it just like we feel that these evil happening are connected, and everyone feel that when we know that they are connected, it just needs us to expose it and start to dismantle it, because they are all, as you say, it's in India, it's in Syria, it's in Iraq, it's in Sudan, it's in Yemen, and all of this has one common thing, that people are look after their interests, and people don't feel that others deserve the same rights that they deserve, and this mentality affect everyone, and it's very very dangerous that, as the sister mentioned now, that we feel, okay, this happens very far away from us, so as long as we are safe here, I can just turn blind eye. It doesn't burn my house yet, but we need to understand that injustice, if I don't stand up against it and speak against it, it will reach us, and it will burn everyone. And yeah, subhanAllah, sometimes when you think, like Shaima was mentioning about the politicians, the same politicians that supported these massacres to happen and refused to call for genocides are the same politicians that led our economy in our country to the situation we are in. The same politician that destroyed our NHS, the same politician that deceived the country during the COVID. So it's just like we cannot turn blind eye and say we are safe here. It's like a string, and you should stand up for all of this. Thank you.
Like you said, we have to pass the baton to our children so that they carry on, right? So how can we teach our children about the realities of what's happening in Palestine, so that they have a problem at school, right? Because they have difference of opinion. So how can they put that forward, and even we as if we are in a circle who are supporting Israel and against Palestine, right? We feel insecure to put our views. Yeah. So how can we teach children how can they put their views in their school, and yeah.
As we mentioned, our children learn from what they see in their houses, what they see from us, much more than what they learn from attending an event or attending a lecture or whatever. This is what they see in their houses. This is what shape their life, and this is what shape their mind and how they understand life around them. So if they feel that these issues are live inside the house, that we talk about this in a language they understand, and we make them contribute to all these events, contribute with their monies, and feel that these are your brothers and sisters and we should do something about it. What we can do in our houses is very important. How can they do this, or how can we like put the balance between what to teach them and how they avoid any problems? It's really it's difficult, but it's doable. It's not easy, but we need to understand and invite some maybe teachers, legal advisors to tell us what are our rights in schools as teachers and as students and as people and as parents as well. Because sometimes there are rooms for us to represent our views, but sometimes we just step back because we don't understand what's our rights, and that's why I think it's very important for us to make like groups of parents with teachers and seek advice and know what exactly are our rights, and don't just back up when one of the children go through some troubles or whatever. So I think that's our role, and this is a responsibility upon us to make sure that this legacy and this understanding and this responsibility towards this cause of Palestine is maintained in our generation.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Huda, student of grade 7. Actually, I want to ask a question which is pretty similar to hers. So when I have friends and teachers who actually support Israel, and I wanted to tell them that, what actually not only Israel is going through stuff, also Palestinians are going through stuff. They're having a really hard time. I wanted to tell people the same thing, but at the same time I have a feeling that I might be left out, for accepting the truth and stuff, like being different, having a different opinion from others. At the same time I wanted to express what I feel. So I'd like to, tell people a way of saying this, what I feel. At the same time, I don't want to feel left out. I just wanted a way to say it.
Barakallahu fiki for your question. I think I would start off by saying that as Muslims, we're strangers. We're strangers in this world. And that doesn't mean that we don't have friends or we don't, we're just alone, but we're never supposed to fit in. This dunya was never meant for us. But I can understand what you're saying, because I definitely went through something like that. And what I've noticed, and I think just from my experience, when you stand up for the truth and you say the truth and you say it with so much conviction, even if you are left out, there are so many other blessings that will come. The most important thing is that you stick to your principles and you stick to your truth, and you explain to people in a way that they understand. You tell them, you show them, you ask them, is this acceptable? Is this something that you would accept for yourself? That you would accept for yourself or for your family or for your friends? The images that we're seeing in Gaza, they're not normal, they're not okay. So you can always explain to people in a way that they understand that actually the atrocities that are happening, the murder and the genocide that we are seeing is not okay, and we have seen it being repeated in history. This is not, we've seen, and it's not to compare, but we've seen the Holocaust, we've seen genocides happening in India, we've seen genocides happening in Rwanda, we've seen genocides happening all across the world, and it was never okay. So what makes this okay? But I would say, in terms of feeling left out, try to always have people, and this is why companionship and sisterhood is really important, because sometimes you will feel alone, but having that community and having like-minded sisters and like-minded friends it will help you in those moments when you feel left out in school. But trust me, sticking up for the truth and saying the truth no matter what, it will always, it's difficult. I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's really difficult to do, but I promise you, you will always see the fruits of it. I don't know.
First of all, I want to thank you for your feeling of responsibility, that you feel you have a responsibility and you want to do something and you want to stand for a cause you believe in, and that's the feeling and the pain in your heart is something you will get reward for that. You are not one of those people who feels I don't care, or it's not. It's only for me. Is it only me? Should I? Will I add something? This feeling is something you will get rewarded for. The second thing I want to tell you that you should feel in your school that you have the right to feel safe and feel secure, and you feel that you are able to express what bothers you. You watch these things every day, and you feel that these upset you, and you should always feel that my school is a safe place, and they should look after your own well-being, and you should not be intimidated to feel that okay, I can see these things happening, but I cannot even say that I'm not okay with that, and no one should be okay with that. So this is something important, that you feel that this is my right to express how I feel, and the school should be a safe place for you to express how you are feeling. The second thing, it's having to learn more. As they say, people around us they don't know so many things, so many facts. They don't know it. For example, they always say Israel has the right to defend themselves. They have the right to defend themselves. It's when we just read the United Nations and the international law, it's very obvious for everyone that the occupied land, people who occupy, the occupier, don't have the right. This is in international law. The occupier don't have a right to defend themselves because they are occupier. So the areas there are areas in Palestine under international law are illegally occupied. The West Bank is illegally occupied. The settlements in West Bank all of them are illegal. So when they are occupier, they don't have the right to defend themselves. But now we are under this, it's just like a weapon being raised in front of every one of us. They have the right to defend themselves, and then we cannot. They try to shut us down. You cannot even say something against. But when we know that this is by international law, we're not saying something from our book. We're not bringing something from our this not what I'm saying. This is what the international law says. So if you learn more about the history and learn more about the legality, you will be more strong to understand and to know that how to speak and how to deal with this trouble. May Allah reward you, and may Allah, inshallah, accept your feeling and your pain.
Assalamu alaikum, sister. So I have a question so we are hearing from the media Israel is working hard to wipe out the history, what's happening, right? So even this is the same happening in India, even from the textbooks, they are trying to delete the names of the Muslim readers who involved in their struggle for freedom of India. So how we can give some awareness to our young children and people about what's the actual history and about this conflict of Palestine. So can we are we looking forward to have some workshops or kind of some thought sharing sessions?
Do I have to? Assalamu alaikum. I recently heard Bilal Azad, one of a renowned sheikh, his clip regarding what is it meant by Israel. I think that is the right title. And Alhamdulillah, it gave a good insight regarding the Bani Israel. It's not regarding the Bani Israel, not on the Palestine itself. It's just a vast area, and we all know that Bani Israel from the Prophet Yaqub, and also what he said. He's from the Lebanon, and that helped me to know. It just opened my eyes. Like I didn't know much about that before, and that's one good clip to hear. And what he said, this Zionism, this is actually created late 1800, and before that, whoever live in Lebanon, Jordan, all that, they can claim they are from the Israel, like the Palestine area, and when the British. This is created a Jew from Austria, and what they said is, you go and create a state. You don't ask about or get permission from the people from the Palestine. So people who live in the Palestine earlier we know, like, as a human. What I was trying to say is. Not from that superficial knowledge about Israel, we have to go and deep and learn about what is meant with Bani Israel and what decades was been going on there, and to learn about the history is the main thing. And what you mentioned is one important thing. I think for the youngsters, we have to teach them the right history. Maybe some workshops regarding this will be quite helpful to do. And sometimes it's lots of news and resources in the media. Maybe they have to get the right thing, not the. I saw one of the clip earlier. One Jewish lady was saying, Medina. Medina was before belonged to Jews, and we actually claimed Medina by Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Like things like that. So, like it has been, they can mistaken by, like thinking about, oh, it's happened there, why they can't claim. So people try to claim their, same thing happening in India also. People are saying, oh, this is belong to Hindus. And so people started claiming each land like that. It's never ending, isn't it? So inshallah, like I think best to learn about the real resources, and I think we can think about something like a workshop of this also, inshallah, in future.
I want to ask one more question. Actually, the defense coming from, using our oath. So this time, so we noticed when the Palestine was attacked, all the politicians stood together. It's probably there is one or two out of the, diagram, but most of them stood together, regardless of the right wing or left wing. Both, everybody was the same way of thinking and acting. So when election comes, where do we going to put our vote? This is the question sometimes asked. When we go into vote, for me, when I look at it, everybody is the same. Where do we cast our vote? This is one of my questions I want to ask.
Okay. Barakallahu Fiki for that question. It's a really important one, and it's something that a lot of Muslim organizations are discussing at the moment. And there's a lot of work that's happening regarding this. You might have seen there is a new organization called the Muslim Vote. So this is a collection of different Muslim organizations, including MAB. They have started this sort of community organizing group to to sort of organize and work with Muslim communities to decide on the best way to vote at the next general election. So there's a lot of work that's happening, and I completely understand, your frustration, because whether it's the Labour Party or the Conservatives, this genocide in Gaza has really exposed everyone, every single person, and it's. I know a lot of Muslims, usually they would vote for Labour, but we've seen how the Labour Party has, sided, well, not even sided, but how they have reacted to everything. And the amount of anti-Palestinian racism, but also Islamophobia that we have seen just recently this week. There has been wild comments from different political parties and MPs, whether from the Tories or the Labour Party, about describing Muslims who are organising the next general election as foreign invaders, as Islamists, etc. So we're seeing a lot of things that's happening, and this is going to continue at the next general election. But there's a lot of work that's happening to punish those politicians who, for an example, didn't vote for a ceasefire, to punish politicians who have enabled and sided with genocide and Israel. And I think it's about being strategic as a community. We have so much anger, and we have so much power within the community. It's about being strategic, and it's about thinking about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and what impact it will have for our next generation. So I would say, inshallah, try and get involved with that. I know there are some seats that are targeted, particular constituencies that has a high number of Muslims. So there are alternative candidates that are being put in. So there's a lot of work happening, and I don't know, Doctora, if you have more to say.
The same what Shaima has mentioned about the Muslim vote. It's because the question you have raised is in the heads of all of us. And for some Muslim communities here, and some of the Muslim who lived here for a long time, they used to vote in a certain way, especially they used to vote for Labour, and some of these politicians, sadly, taking the Muslim vote for granted, and they think that we are in their pockets and we will always vote for them no matter. And to some extent, some of them feels that never mind, even if the Muslim will not vote for us. Some of them have said this clearly, even if Muslims don't vote for us, we don't need, it's just like we don't need your vote. So if they are not representing the needs and the demands of the constituencies they represent, why would we give them our vote? So as Shaima said, there are lots of work have been happening now. Inshallah, maybe this will consolidate, and we will be some sort of communication with different cities according to the constituencies, and we will discuss with the communities what will be the best way to vote. It's just to make them understand that they need to represent their constituencies, and they cannot be in their own interests and not representing the majority that they are representing.
The clip I actually just said, it said the children of Israel, who are they? So just wanted to be in. I have shared in the Strive UK ladies.
Sorry, can I add one more thing in that one? You just said about we are doing lots of things to bring that somebody to represent us. At the same time, the majority of Muslim community, if I say, this majority of Muslim communities are not even aware what is going on around us. So how are we going to tackle that? Because lots of things happening. There is lots of Muslim community, they are just namesake Muslims, if I say. That's why I believe. Because they don't have any kind of that, need for a community. They think they are comfortable, they are getting, they're working, or they're getting benefits, they're eating, drinking, and they are living their life. So there is lots of Muslims in that way, probably they are not aware what can happen in the future if we move this way. So if there is any root works, we need to, I myself, I always talk about it, because we think we just need to bring that family, family gatherings, and we need to discuss this thing inside the family, because there is lots of kids outside. They are not in the fold of the right way. If I say they're drug, alcohol, this kind of things are in individual families, it is there. So this kind of kids or in this kind of families are not even bothered about any of these things going on around. And there is lots. It's not only one, small population. I'm coming from Newton. We know there is too many things going on, and they don't care about community. They're not worried. They're not bothered. They're not. There is no awareness. Even there is no light inside. So, are we going to do some work based on this issue? This is my question. Probably, tackling masajid, working together. Probably one of the ideas, because we have a Pakistani masjid, we have a Bengali masjid, we have an Indian masjid. We never come together. We don't tackle that barrier of our culture or that kind of things. So, sorry.
I think the first step that will start in the Muslim vote is to ask the masajid and the mosques to encourage people to register for voting, because to start with, so many Muslims are not registered to vote. So as I understand, there will be a campaign for all the masajid or most of the masajid to have like a desk with just like signs to register to vote, and someone to help all the Muslims who come for the prayer and so on to register themselves for voting. So this will be the first thing to do, to make sure that Muslims are already registered to vote. And then there will be like a discussion and awareness in the masajid, and help us to raise this point in our communities. And one important thing, because some people, as you said, they are not in the middle of these events, but we need to tell them that these politicians who their values accepted to see this genocide happening and go accept it and go ahead with this and line with this. Do we think they are? We can trust them to look after our NHS, to look after our country, to look after the place we live in. They are not trusted if they don't value the importance of justice, if they don't value the human life, if they don't value the rights of children, the rights of women, if they don't value these basic things. How can we trust them? Not leave alone their vote for Gaza. We will not talk about their vote of Gaza, but they are not trusted. Their values, their morals are not trusted. And this would be a point of discussion, inshallah. And I think the Muslim vote will start to initiate this discussion in mosque and in khutab and so on, inshallah.
Just to add briefly, I think we've now reached a point, from what I can see anyway, that our communities have reached a point where we're starting to realize we need to rise above the differences. We need to rise above whether it's the Pakistani mosque and whether it's the, Bengali mosque. We need to rise above this, because what's at stake at the moment is not little. Our future is at stake as a Muslim community in the UK. The amount of racism and Islamophobia that is normalized in British public, but by politicians and MPs and political commentators, is not normal, is not okay. And I think now there is more awareness, and there is eagerness to rise above the differences and to unite to better our situation and better our communities, inshallah. So I hope with the Muslim vote initiative, that will be the start of that, inshallah.
Yeah. And recently, there is a hope, like many of the MPs' offices have been, people are going and protesting in front of them and just trying to reveal their true color. And actually, like the common people, like they don't know like whether they are supporting the Palestine or like are they trying to bring the ceasefire. But nowadays, because of this voice and shout, people are more hearing about what whom they are giving the vote. So Alhamdulillah, compared to earlier, there is a lot of change happening. So we will see in the social media and things like that. Even the Labour Party leader, people are stopping him in the train station and asking questions and revealing them publicly. So that is a hope, inshallah. So hopefully we are looking forward and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like we can bring somebody really stand for justice, inshallah.
Prayers, I think.
Yeah, it's time for the prayer.
Any more questions? Assalamu alaikum. My question is like pretty similar to Sister Khalid's question. This not like a question. It's just like a concern inside my mind. Like, so we know that we are outside of the Palestine. We are living out of the Palestine, and what we can do for them is like doing the protest or like boycott or through prayers and making giving classes to others, to non-Muslim people. But I have a concern, like when the war started, like I know it started long before, like, but when this war started on this last October, we have seen that there was so many protests going on, a big mob of people going for the protests from all around the world, and we are going for the boycotts, and it was like everyone is going to boycott everything, and everyone was ready for that, like, but what I understand that the situation goes on worse like this, so it's going such a worse condition there, and it's going to be worse again and again. So nowadays, what I'm seeing that even in my community and my peoples, my friends or my families or even myself, I'm feeling like I have shared so many things on my WhatsApp or my Instagram, my FBs when the war started on October. But nowadays, if I'm looking through the Facebook or something, everybody is eagerly sharing their thoughts, like when they are going outside for any travel or when their family meetings or something, whatever related to their own concerns. So most of the people are thinking that war is not gonna stop, and it keeps on going, and we have to move on. Like our life have to move on. So even the coming to the boycott system, I have so many friends like doing their businesses or like in the countries like the Muslim countries. They were saying me that like they were very fond of maybe like the coffees or the Costa or some of it. So they were saying that the war is going on, and we can't stop that, and the life has to go on, so we are gonna have we have to go for this coffee, or we have to go for this brand, or if they are doing any businesses, they are not ready to if they are like the boycotting a Coca-Cola or whatever the drinks, so they were saying that it's gonna affect their businesses. And one day, even if I'm going with my daughter, walking along the McDonald's, she was asking me a question that made me concerned, like, are we gonna have a McDonald's after this war? She was just asking me that question. So the same thing happened to me, like, long before, we had a boycott. I don't know which time was that, when I was in year 6 or 7. The same thing, we were boycotting Nestle at that time. I think some of them heard about. So at that time, my uncle bought me some, we have some peanut chickies and everything we'll get from India. So instead of the Nestle chocolates and everything, we have Nestle chocolates all over India at that time. So he usually brought me some type of peanut chickies and everything at that time. After like few months, he gave me the Nestle chocolates again. So I was thinking like, oh, it's all stopped now. So saying like I have a big concern about the Muslim population mainly, not about the non-Muslim, because nowadays I'm feeling more people are coming from the non-Muslim background to this
to support this protest and to boycott the boycotts. I have seen some videos in Sainsbury's nowadays, like some of the non-Muslims holding a paper, holding a placard with the name of the companies, which is the list of the Israel. So even if I'm going to buy a printer, last time the HP was calling me like saying that there's 50% off, 70% off. So being a Muslim, it's a bit concerned. I have a bit worry. It makes me worry all the time. So for my kids or for my people around me, for myself itself, I also am feeling that I'm not sharing too much about the condition going on Palestine, even through the prayers or like even for the protests. I know the protests are going on in London, but we are not taking initiative to go there and participate there. So it's just a concern. I'm not going to ask you a question about that. But do you think that the Muslim population or Muslim people who's doing the boycotts or whatever they are doing right now will normalize this situation maybe after this war? Or I'm not saying that it's going to be an end of the war, because even they stop all this genocide and everything. Do you think that it's going to be normalized again?
Um, yes and no. I think it's definitely from my experience, I do see a trend that whenever something bad happens, everyone is reactive, and then when it calms down, people go back to normal. That is something that I have seen, but I do feel that what's happening in Gaza right now has unlocked a different sense of commitment that I haven't really seen before. People now aren't just boycotting for the sake of boycotting. People are reading and have become more educated. And actually, what I have seen is this generation, Gen Z, in particular, their commitment is something that is something else. They firmly believe in whatever action that they're taking, and that is it. So I do have hope, particularly in the younger generation. But that is why earlier I also mentioned about Qiyam and Tahajjud, because I do feel that it is those night prayers that allows you and fuels you to continue with your activism. We do get tired and we do get burnt out, and that's normal. But I feel that with the Qiyam and with the extra, with the night prayers in particular, when you're alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're crying to Him and you're praying and you're making dua, it really, really does help you to be consistent and to and it gives you the strength and the determination to continue with your activism. So your boycott doesn't just become boycotting until the war is over. Your protests, even if protests do stop, and they will stop after a ceasefire after a ceasefire, but you change that protest into organizing locally. You transform the weekends that you go out into London or into your city centres and protest into organizing within your community, organizing within your family, organizing within your sisterhood, friendship groups or whatever it is, and that becomes consistent. So for me personally, I would say yes and no. I have personally seen a shift in mentality as a result of what's happening in Gaza now, and we can only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it's consistent and it continues until the oppressors fall and justice is served, inshallah.
As Shaima was saying that yes, we understand that everything they say, every action has like a top and then it goes down, and people normally just forget and start to get along with their life, and here it comes our own responsibility, our own role to remind ourselves, as we mentioned before, you steadfast, and then you remind everyone around you that you never underestimate anything you're doing, because they are relying on us getting bored, getting tired, and forget. Even these companies that have already been losing money and have already closing some of their branches, they are relying that at certain stage we will just give up and we'll go back to our normal. So it's yes, it's a concern, but it relies on our shoulder. If we don't give up and if we don't just submit to the feeling of oh, it doesn't help.
Allah. We don't hold any media to speak for us. Even though our brothers, sisters and children are buried under the darkened hearts of the so-called pharaohs and hypocrite Muslim leaders, he don't have a tongue and a tongue which talk the truth, and they don't have a stable back to stand up. Alhamdulillah, we have seen the energy, passion and insight which boost up our hope and the energy to work together against these tyrants. We shouldn't be losing this restored energy. We should be using it wisely to upbring the next generation with insight, knowledge, courage and rooted justice to stabilize our society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed us as mothers who can give birth to the great leaders. The society will build fences around the ladies, preventing them consuming the knowledge. So they produce weak offspring. Their visions narrowed down. They see through the needle eye, which kept us away from the reality of the place we were living in. We have submitted our social, political matters and relations to the so-called tyrants. They further imprisoned our brothers and sisters. So we give birth to a muted, inactive and blind generation. This caused us atrocities among our world. It's everywhere. It's in Palestine, it's in India, Uyghur, Myanmar, so on. We sisters should be pledging ourselves to put this in order, and inshallah we can make it. I'll put my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking help and guidance to break the barriers of our language, the barriers of our culture, tribalism, nationalism, so on. And we can hold our hands to demolish the fortress of new pharaohs, the fortress of the new pharaohs who separate the truth, to separate the truth from the falsehood and win over the hypocrites. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help all of us to be in the right path. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك نبنا وإليك المصير. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذريتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق. السلام عليكم.